The LA Clippers finally bounced back on Tuesday night against the Dallas Mavericks. And they did that by changing up the rotation and Reggie Jackson not even playing a minute. Is it safe to say that with a certain 9-man rotation, the Clippers don't need to make any moves and this could be the team that turns the entire season around? And how about Kawhi Leonard? He's been looking really good of late. Is it safe to say that he can be back to that 2021 version? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel where I do more LA sports, Clipper, and NBA history content, including a vlog of the Clipper Mavs game. I had a great seat. It was awesome. Great stuff right by the tunnel. And of course, remember, we are free and available on all podcasting platforms, including YouTube, where you're probably watching this video, hopefully. Make sure to comment on today's pinned question on the YouTube channel after you subscribe and turn that notification bell on. And the question is, if the Clippers and Ty Lue maximize the rotation and maximize the wing players, all the stuff we've been asking for, do we need to make another move? Do we even need to go out and get a backup big or do anything? Or do we have the roster and it just hasn't been utilized correctly? And that's one thing I want to be talking about right now is what I've been seeing the last two games and how Ty Lue has changed up his strategy and finally done what so many fans have been begging for, and that is to play wing-heavy lineups and get off the small guard conviction. And then later down the episode, I'm going to be talking about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and especially Kawhi Leonard and how great he has looked lately. Has he made us confident enough to say he's going to be able to turn into that 2021 version? Has his health in the last couple of weeks where he's been a little healthier given us more confidence that he can return to that version? And then, of course, at the end, every time we have a non-game, post-game episode, we will be looking at the big picture as always. So let's get right into it, starting with the first thing. So there were a lot of things that I went over in the last episode. It went a little longer than expected. And I think there were so many things to talk about that I didn't even fully really get through everything I wanted to say. So let's just start with the fact that Ty Lue has seemed to finally figure it out. And I don't know, there's been a lot of debate whether it's been in the cards the whole time that he was holding on to this and he wanted to go to it at this point. Or he just finally had a realization that, look, Terrence Mann needs to play more, Robert Covington needs to play more, and Reggie Jackson might not need to play at all. And a lot of people want to give Ty the benefit of the doubt and say that he had this plan the whole time and he was just testing out Reggie and John Wall and all this for the first 40 games. Look, I don't think so. I think that Ty Lue's definitely an experimental coach, but I think if you had to ask Ty Lue, would you rather win 55 games or win 45 games before the season started? He's obviously going to say 55 games. He's not just intentionally out there trying things to lose or something like that. I think he legitimately thought he could get away with the three guards because Reggie Jackson has done so much for the Clippers. Reggie Jackson has been the guy that has been the safe pair of hands in terms of not ball protection or anything like that, but safe in terms of he is going to give the Clippers 15 points, whether efficient or not, when Kawhi and Paul George are not playing. And if the game is close, Reggie Jackson has a chance to close out that game. And we've seen this guy, number one on the Clippers, in the last couple of years, make several game-winning shots and make big plays. And last season, he made multiple. So it's not a crazy thing that Ty Lue half the season was playing Reggie Jackson a little too much. I think in his mind, Reggie Jackson has earned that reverence and earned that and I don't want to say the word preferential treatment, but he's kind of earned that leeway, at least in his mind. Whether we agree with it or not, that's up for interpretation, and you could disagree with it. I obviously have been disagreeing with it for a while. But that being said, it's really easy to sit here in front of a microphone watching the games as a fan and not actually having to talk to these real humans. And I want to emphasize that. Real humans. Not just robot basketball players that think that, oh, okay, I'm not playing well, then I'll just ride the bench and just root for everybody else. It's not that easy. These people are human beings with feelings. And Reggie Jackson, I was at the last game around the bench, and his vibe, his demeanor was just not the same. He was wearing his hood the whole time. Not like that means anything, but he just looked kind of down in the dumps. And it's really sad because to me, Reggie Jackson has always been the face of the enthusiastic mob that is the Clippers the last couple of years. And he kind of is the face of the fun to me. So I just want to see Reggie smiling again, although I don't want to see him play anymore in real minutes. So if that's possible, that he can still be that happy-go-lucky Reggie Jackson, even without playing a lot of minutes, I'd be ecstatic about that. But Luke Kennard and John Wall also have their own cases to play. I mean, when a team brings in a free agent with a name like John Wall, he's going to get tested and tried out a lot. And Luke Kennard is Luke Kennard, and Norman Powell is Norman Powell. Those two have really, really strong value to this team because there are players on this team. Those two are players on this team that do things that no one else does. As I talked about last game when Norman Powell had a 26-point game, he is the best on this team on attacking closeouts. He gets to the basket as well as anyone on the team. I'm sorry, it was 27 points. And then Luke Kennard, the best three-point shooter on the team, an absolute sniper, gets hot in a hurry. So they have cases to play. I think finally Ty Lue just was pushed hard enough, whether it was by assistant coaches or an analytics team or whatnot. And also, it doesn't take a crazy basketball mind to figure out what Terrence Mann does on the court. So when he saw how much better I think we did with Atlanta, I think he said, you know what, this looks like the wave. And the wave is to start Terrence Mann and have no official starting point guard in that starting lineup. And what it does is it gives us a lot of defensive versatility, and it makes us work out of the mid-post more, because Terrence Mann's not really a high pick-and-roll threat like Reggie Jackson. Why is he not a high pick-and-roll threat like Reggie Jackson? Well, the easy answer is that he's not as good of a ball handler, but the main thing is he's not as good of a shooter. So teams are going to go underneath screens the same way they do John Wall and force Terrence Mann to shoot. And one thing I like about Terrence is he does a good job of, I think sometimes he can be a little too hesitant with the jump shot, but there are times where he passes up shots and works the ball around, and that's a good thing. You don't always have to shoot every open shot that's there, because some guys, even when they're open, are not going to shoot a super great percentage from three. And Terrence Mann, he really has been efficient this season, but he's still not the best three-point shooter in the world. Right now, he stands at 35%, and each year it seems like that's improving. And I think at one point in his peak, I think Terrence Mann will be like a 40% three-point shooter. I think his ceiling is to be a championship role player in this league. And I think he's already can be a championship role player in this league, but I think in his prime, he'll shoot the three ball really well. But long story short, Robert Covington's been getting DNPs all season, and finally we started to see him play last game, and how amazing he was against Dallas should give him I don't want to use the word permission, but it should give him, the deserving nature, or he deserves to get minutes. I think that's very obvious now that with Robert Covington and Terrence Mann out there, we get a lot more rebounding, we get a lot more length, we get a lot better defenders, whether it be helper on the ball, and it just makes it that much tougher to go against us when Nico, Kawhi, Paul George, those guys are already out there on the court. So if the Clippers stick with this, in my opinion, it's 9 men. I think, sadly, Reggie Jackson and John Wall, when everyone's healthy, are the odd men out. Now, I think one of them should play when either Paul George or Kawhi are out. Let's say one of them's load managing. I think one of them should play. And Joey Lynn from the SI Now asked Ty Lue last game about that post game, and he said he likes playing with one of them. Maybe because I'm a point guard. These are his words. Maybe because I'm a point guard. I like point guards. I know you guys like wings. I played point guard growing up. My podcast name is Dime Dropper because of, dropping dimes. However, it's all about who's better right now at basketball. I shouldn't say better at basketball, but who's a better fit for this team mainly. And these 9 players are, to me, the ones we should go with. And why do I say 9 and not 10? Because in the playoffs, you know that Ty Lue wants to stagger Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. He wants to keep one of them in at all times. So if that's the case, that the Clippers need to play 4 guys off the bench, and those guys are Norman Powell, Luke Kennard, Robert Covington, and Nico Batum, assuming that Terrence Mann and Marcus Morris continue to start alongside Kawhi, Paul, and Zoo. That is a really good 9-man rotation. Your weakest defender is Luke Kennard, who's improved every single year and is a good 6'5". And then Norman Powell, probably your second weakest. And every other player outside of that is a good defender. At minimum, they're a good defender. So that team, I think, can do a lot. If you're wondering about the backup big thing, I think come playoff time, if you really need to put a backup big in there for a couple of minutes, you can throw Musa or Moses out there for a couple minutes. But overall, a small ball lineup when you have 3 big 6'7" or over wings out there, and based on the fact that we're staggering Kawhi and Paul, that means you can have either Nico, Rocco, Terrence, or Marcus in there. 2 of those 4, then the Clippers will be fine. And I honestly think those lineups are going to be great on both ends of the court. And when teams switch everything on the Clippers, when they're on offense, Paul George or Kawhi will be out there, and we should target the weakest defender on the other team and go at them with our superstar guys. But also Norman Powell can put some downhill burst and pressure on guys. So that's my opinion, that 9-man rotation, John Wall and Reggie Jackson out of the lineup, is the best way to go. Now, whether Ty Lue will do that, I really am not sure, especially because playing with no traditional point guard sounds a little bit weird. However, this game has changed, and it's all about creating good looks. It doesn't matter what traditional point guard you are or not. It matters about creating good looks, and I don't think Reggie Jackson and John Wall help that much. John Wall does definitely create some good looks in transition, but what he's giving up in terms of his lack of shooting and his lack of effort on the defensive end is sometimes too much to ignore, and the Clippers just have a really good roster, and we are the deepest team in the league. I still stand by that, and sacrifices must be made in that case. And coming up, Kawhi Leonard. It all starts with him. He's the guy. He's been playing really well of late. Is it safe to say we can put him back into 2021 conversations, that version of himself? Going to be talking about that coming up. Let me tell you a little something about Built Bar. Built Bar is absolutely awesome, and sadly, I haven't eaten it in a while. But if you're looking for a delicious treat and don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try it as well. And we just got through the holidays at Built Bar, and my goal is to eat a little healthier this year and definitely get some gains in to try to put on some more muscle. And Built Bar is one of the ways that I plan on doing that this year. And what makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, so they taste more like a chocolate bar than your typical protein bar that you see and have had in your life. They have this chewy interior that makes it feel like you're eating a legit candy bar. And they come in unbelievable flavors like peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. My personal favorite is raspberry. Kind of reminds me of those Brookside chocolate pomegranate candy things. And then also churro, which I haven't tried yet, which really makes me mad. I really want to try that flavor. And I'm not sure how Built does it, but they do taste just like candy bars. And they're only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box anymore. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Never heard of Sam's Club, but if you have one in your neighborhood, they have Built Bars there. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today and pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with the hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. All right. Talking about Kawhi Leonard. So we've really monitored his progress here on Locked On throughout the season. And it's funny because in the beginning of the year, he was averaging 13 points a game and shooting 13% from 3. And each time I seem to get on this microphone and talk to you, every time his averages are increasing. Right now, he has moved up to 18 points a game, which is second on our team. 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and his field goal percentage is going up. He's now shooting 48%, which is more than Paul George, more than Norman Powell, more than Marcus Morris, more than Reggie Jackson, more than John Wall, more than Nico Batum, more than Robert Covington. So basically only Ivica Zubac, Terrence Mann, and Moses Brown and Musa are shooting a better field goal percentage than Kawhi Leonard now. So 3 bigs and then Terrence Mann, whose shots mostly come around the rim. But Terrence Mann, honestly, he does shoot from the outside too, so he's just been really efficient this year. However, yes, he does get most of his shots at the rim. But Kawhi Leonard, the way it's looking, I think he's going to get to 50% or 49 by season's end. And I think my prediction of him averaging 23 points per game may be right around what he finishes with, because I think he's going to probably average like 25, 26 the rest of the way, and it's going to average out to around 23. But let's just talk about the way he looks. So if we check Kawhi Leonard's game log recently, he's been healthier of late, which is amazing. It's what we've been begging for, praying for. Ever since he came back against Charlotte on December 5th, he has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games. So he has played 14 games and hasn't really missed that many. He missed that game with the non-COVID related illness, and he obviously does miss back-to-backs. The game against the one after Denver he missed, against Minnesota. But overall, he has been healthy, and the Clippers, when he has played in his, I believe it's 19 games. Let me look that up real quick. 19 games are 13-6, if I'm not mistaken. So Kawhi Leonard, he has been, yes, it's 13-6. The losses have come to Atlanta, at Denver, obviously, at Indiana was the third, at Boston the fourth, at Philadelphia, and at Orlando. I'm sorry, 12-7. It's 12-7 that we are with Kawhi Leonard. So 12-7, and not all those games have been played with Paul George. It's clear that we're a much better team with him on the floor. But what really is starting to show to me is he's getting his legs back underneath him. The mid-range was going from the beginning. You know, you saw him in preseason, and even in the first game against the Lakers, he went right to his mid-range spots against Juan Toscano-Anderson and showed us that he still had that midi down pat. It was really the 3-ball and just his overall quickness that was lacking a little bit in the beginning. And his 3-ball, I mean, he was at 13% a couple weeks ago, and now he is at 30%. So again, I think that number is going to continue to increase. Same with free throws. He was at like 78%. Now he's at 83%. As far as those numbers, I think he'll finish with around 35% shooting from 3 and about 85, 86% from the line. And in this, I think the Boston game was his best game, personally, because even though the Dallas game was his season high, Boston's a better defensive team. They are better competition. And you look who Dallas is defending with. You know, even if Dallas was a much, you know, I haven't looked at the defensive ratings. I know Boston's not doing as well as last year defensively. But when Dallas doesn't have Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, or Josh Green, 3 guys that probably would all take cracks at Kawhi Leonard, that's not a better defensive team than Boston. And they're not a better team than Boston either. So I don't think that was a better performance from Kawhi Leonard. However, you can argue it. Those two were probably the best, the Dallas game and the Boston game. He also had a really good game against the Washington Wizards a couple weeks back when we won 102-93. He had 31 points and 9 rebounds in that one. So he's starting to have 30-point games. His mid-range is looking as good as ever, and his defense has been sharp too, and just his overall demeanor on the court. You know, as I said, I was really close to the action last game, and just to see his aggressiveness, see him try to post up all the time and try to draw double teams, he's really starting to get more comfortable. And the way I'm seeing it, it still feels like on almost every single game, and this is something I never really felt with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. I felt it sometimes, but on most nights, even now, even coming off this ACL injury, I still feel like we have the best player on the court. He just needs to perform like it. And recently he has been, Kawhi Leonard. So I think it's safe to say that we should expect the 2021 version of him by playoffs. Because if he looks like this right now, barring any setbacks, and that's the main thing, barring any major setbacks, if he just misses a couple more games with load management and finishes the season playing 50 or more, I think the Clippers are going to go on a really nice run to end this season, and I think he's going to be going into the playoffs playing great basketball, and in the playoffs, we're going to see Kawhi remind every single person that doubted him when he was injured that he is still as good as any player in the league, because he not only defends at a high level, but he really scores at a high level from 3 levels. But the mid-range is what the playoffs are all about, and that's why Kawhi Leonard is such a luxury for the Clippers and why he has won a championship as the best player. Because when teams wall off that paint and that 3 ball's not falling, and that happens to teams, and you saw a lot of teams last year when their 3 ball wasn't falling and they weren't getting shots directly at the rim, they didn't know what to do. And one of those teams was the Memphis Grizzlies. I think Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but especially Kawhi Leonard, having that mid-range, even though the Clippers don't get enough easy shots at the rim at times, will be the difference in why the Clippers are more built for the postseason than the regular season. And Kawhi Leonard holds the keys to all that. And it's safe to say, if you haven't been watching Clipper games, when Kawhi Leonard is playing, you should definitely start watching, because he is slowly starting to become that dude again. And it's starting to feel really cool seeing him live. I think these are what connects fans to players when you're a local fan like myself. You know, it took a while for me to, and I'm still going through it with Kawhi in terms of really loving him. Like of course I love Kawhi Leonard, but really loving him like I did with Chris and Blake, and like how I kind of have grown to love Paul George last year. It's those games in person. You know, and that's been the beauty of the Clippers for me, is the affordability of the tickets. I feel so connected to the team because I can go to the games and sit super close and even tell Rocco, as you saw last game in my video, you know, way to work on the glass. And he can point to me and say thanks. You know, that's something that with other teams, even if I was a Laker fan, I wouldn't have that kind of access. It's just not very affordable. So to be close, you know, to be a Clipper fan in LA means to go to games and to really experience these players. So the way I was able to connect with Chris and Blake, it's not just because I watched them on TV, it's because I got to see so many amazing memories in front of my own eyes. Same with Elton Brand, you know, and Paul George after the bubble season where I was in college still, my senior year, we came back in 2021 and there was no fans. And then until the playoffs. And then last season was the first full season with fans since the pandemic, and I really got to connect with Paul George in that way, seeing him play live in front of my own eyes and hit game winners and do whatever he did and lead the Clippers in big runs. And I really felt like Paul George is my favorite player on the team, or at least him or Terrence Mann. And now this season, it's finally started to feel real. Like we really have Kawhi, but because he gets injured so much, we don't really string together that consistency. It doesn't always feel like we have Kawhi. Feeling like we have Kawhi is having the guy who has the best winning percentage in the history of the NBA, higher than Magic, higher than like Havlicek or any of those guys. He has the highest win percentage in the history of the regular season, and it feels like that when he consistently plays, and the Clippers are significantly above 500, but right now they're not. And how much does that hurt their chances of finishing with a top 3 seed or closing out the season in a way that they can get home court advantage? Going to be talking about that and the big picture coming up. You know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. This year, I got my Rams ambassador job on LinkedIn, and it was pretty easy. The application was pretty straightforward. But if you're also looking to get people hired to a company that you run, LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools that go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. It's time to achieve our goals in this new year of 2023, and finding the right team member might just help you do that. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, time to close things out, and let's review what we've talked about thus far. And that is that if the Clippers, in my opinion, Play that 9-man rotation. No Reggie Jackson or John Wall when everyone's healthy. Play one of them when one of the stars are out. And then sometimes, if you need to with that 9-man rotation, you can make it 10 by playing either Mooses or Musa or Moses for spot minutes just to alleviate some pain on the interior if that's what's going on. But that 9-man rotation is so good in my opinion, and I feel like it's starting to become so clear. Terrence Mann, Marcus Morris, Kawhi, and Paul have not all started together, I don't think, this year. And if you put those 4 out there on the court with Zoo, who's been doing such a good job in drop coverage and protecting the rim this year, you have so much resistance at the point of attack, getting over screens. You can switch so many matchups. And when you're out there closing out and rotating, those 6'7" guys make up ground a lot faster than guys like Reggie Kennard and Norman and John. I can tell you that. And you saw a little bit of that in the Dallas game. So that 9-man rotation is prime. And I think a lot of guys can shoot the 3 ball as well. I think Norman Powell, Paul George, and Terrence Mann, those 3 though, really need to lead the way in terms of downhill penetration and creation. I didn't mention Kawhi because he doesn't really have that much burst. He doesn't really blow by guys like that. He gets them on his hip. He creates a little separation. He pivots, turns, pump fakes. He's a fundamentally sound player, and I like that more than anything personally. But we still need some downhill penetration and creation. And Paul George, Norman Powell, and Terrence Mann are the ones that can do that. Luke Kennard, Marcus Morris, not so much. But I think another avenue we really need to explore in terms of getting easier baskets is giving Zubats 3 to 4 at least post touches a game, especially when he has a wing or a guard switched onto him. That should be a no-brainer. And one thing I want to give a shout out to Terrence Mann for is last game, he was looking to throw it to Zoo when he had a wing on him. I think it was Dinwiddie he had on him one time. And they not double teamed him. He was really trying to push him, Spencer Dinwiddie. And what Zoo did, and you don't see it as much in this era, but if you go watch other eras of basketball, it happened all the time, and it was great. Kick it out, repost, get deeper post position, and then get the ball back again. And that's exactly what we did in that moment, and Spencer Dinwiddie was forced to foul Zoo. I love it. So I think Zoo, especially with that right-handed jump hook that he's really improved over the years, he doesn't have an array of moves. He can't really spin over his right shoulder, but over that left shoulder, he has that right-handed jump hook, and I think we should give him a couple post touches a game because it's right around the basket. He's likely going to get fouled if the refs stop disrespecting him, and it's going to make everyone's life easier and also keep him more engaged. You see sometimes when he doesn't get the ball in those switches, he gets pissed, and I would too. And then the other thing, Kawhi Leonard, as I said, he's looking really good. I think he's slowly but surely going to start looking like that 2021 version, top 5 player in the league, maybe even the best at his best. And right now, these last 2 years, honestly the last 3 years, the conversation has been as open as it's ever been in my lifetime. You know, Kobe had that spot as the best player in the world locked for a little bit, and then LeBron had it for a while. And then after that, it's really been like the Steph, KD, Kawhi, but now Jokic, Giannis, Luka are kind of getting into the mix as well. I think the playoffs seem to kind of determine it. Last year, it seemed like most people, after the season ended, were going with Giannis or Steph, which I got no issues with that. Kawhi Leonard, though, I hope gets vaulted back into that conversation, and the only way that's going to happen is playoffs. I also want to make a mention of one thing before I look at the big picture standings-wise. Nico Batum had a moment last game where he was subbed out after like 3 minutes in the second quarter, and he screamed at Ty Lue and a bunch of coaches. I was right there watching it. He was pissed. He put up 2 fingers on his hand. I think was signifying that either this is the second time you've taken me out this half, or that was only 2 minutes. Well, it was a little over 3 minutes. But he wasn't happy. It looked like a soccer player who had been subbed out. And, you know, in soccer, you can't come back in the game. It looked like that. And I love the frustration. I love the fire. And one thing Ty Lue also did last game, because they were calling some really ridiculous calls, he got a tech. And that's the fire we've been wanting to see from the team, from the coaches. We want to see a little bit of, I care about this game. It's not just, it's regular season, it doesn't matter. It's all about the playoffs. let's see you take this seriously. We want to see the team build good habits, and I think the way we can build good habits is by sticking with that 9-man rotation and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George being healthy. Hopefully Paul George comes back on Friday, but I'm not betting on it. And this game is going to be huge against the Denver Nuggets. The Clippers just got absolutely mauled by them in Denver last week, embarrassed in front of the entire country and over those people watching overseas. So what the Clippers need to do, and I don't think I'm going to be at this game, is bounce back. Actually, I know I'm not going to be at this game. Is bounce back, get a win, or at the very least, if they lose and Paul George doesn't play, compete. If Paul George plays, they should win the game. I know Denver's number 1 in the West, but if you want to be a team that can win the championship, there should be nobody that you should go into a home game thinking is going to beat you. You need to think you can beat everyone at home and that every home game should be a win, especially if you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George healthy. So right now, the Clippers in the standings stand at 22-21 and in the 6th seed. If the playoffs ended today, we'd be playing the New Orleans Pelicans in round 1 starting in New Orleans. And I think, honestly, I'd take that all day, but I would much rather be at home. The Clippers are 22-21. That's only a game and a half behind Dallas, who's 5th, and I really like that, and that's why that game was so important to win. And then Sacramento is 22-18, so same amount of wins, but they have 3 less losses, and believe me, I think Sacramento will slip. I think they'll be a play-in team, not a playoff team. Whether they make it to the playoffs via the play-in, we'll see, but I think they'll finish within 7 to 10. And then New Orleans is 3.5 games above the Clippers in the 3 seed, and Zion and Brandon Ingram are still out. So the Clippers need to take advantage of that. The 2 seed and the 1 seed, the Nuggets and the Grizzlies, are tied at 28-13. And I think that gap is too much for the Clippers to make up. So I think Denver and Memphis are going to start separating themselves from the pack. They're both 18-3 at home and 10-10 on the road, which is hilarious that they have the exact same home and away records. Really funny. But halfway through the season, those two lead the West, and I think the Clippers sadly won't get a top 2 seed, even though I really wanted one because we've never gotten one in a full 82-game season. But a top 3 seed is that magic number that championship teams are. Top 3 seeds outside of 69 Celtics and 95 Rockets. So the Clippers, if they can get that 3 seed, I think the championship dream is very much alive and well. And I've never said that it's not alive and well. I've never said that. I just said if the Clippers can still get a top 3 seed, I'll be shocked. So I will admit I'm wrong if we do. If we don't, well, then I was right, and we'll just see from there. But thank you so much for joining me. Make sure to comment on today's pinned question, and that is, do you think if the Clippers buy into that 9-man rotation that I suggested and really stick with the wings and optimize this team the best that they can, do we even need to make another move? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you know every time we go live. We're going to be back on Saturday or Friday night, depending on when I release that episode. Probably Saturday morning because I got a friend in town from college. So Saturday morning, expect the Denver Nuggets postgame episode. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.